Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Furr, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family, I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
Welcome everyone. Today we're here to assist you with building your cloud computing career. My name is Mike Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers. Been doing this tech career thing for close to 30 years right now when I actually go and look back. And I've spent more than 2 decades helping people get their first tech job, cloud architect job, network architect job, network engineer job, even cloud engineers, you name it, I've been helping people get there. And I want to help you maximize your career. I want you to know how to get hired. I want you to know how to negotiate a higher salary. I want you to stand out from the competition. I want you to get hired when you have no experience and you're competing against someone else with 10 years experience. And believe me, You can, because I've got students that do it every day. And they're working at AWS, they're working at Apple, they're working at IBM, they're working at Cisco, they're working at Google, they're working at Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, the world's biggest banks, and you can too. That's why I'm here, to really make sure you know how to build an elite technology career. Well, we're here to make sure that you know how to get to your goal. Because I have to tell you, almost every day I interact with people that have spent 2 years looking for their dream job, and they're still lost. They're taking courses that have no concept or no relation to their actual job, but they don't know where to go. I did it too, don't get me wrong. I took 6 silly, ridiculous certifications at the start of my networking career, and not a single employer cared in the world. Then I found out from employers what they wanted, and poof, I was hired. That's why we're here. So if you want to know the difference between a cloud architect and a cloud engineer, ask us. We'll tell you. You want to know the skills for a cloud architect career? I promise you they're incredibly different than a cloud engineering career. The only thing they have in common is the word cloud. Maybe you want to know how to become an enterprise architect or an AI architect or any of these things. That's why we're here, to make sure you get to your goal as fast as possible and at the lowest cost as possible. And surprise, I got some free things for you today. First free thing is our document on how to get your first cloud architect job. And it doesn't matter if you have experience, you just need the right skills. Tyrone, please pop that up and then put that link into LinkedIn and also put it into YouTube or wherever else we're streaming right now. And guess what? In 2 weeks, we're going to have another AWS Bootcamp. It's going to be free and it's going to be live. I don't believe anyone should ever pay for certification training, ever. There's nothing in certification training that you should pay for, and I'm going to make sure you get a real experience, not a silly kind of experience where it's just the name of a service, you do a few labs, and you don't know what they mean. When you are done this course, you will understand. And normally we only cater to architects because that's what we do. We really specialize in architects. But thousands of cloud engineers across the world, thousands of DevOps engineers have reached out to us and said, can you make a more tech-focused one? So we have a tremendous number of labs in this new AWS Bootcamp we're going to release, and we're still going to teach you how the technology works and why you need it. So it's going to be a really fun time. Sign up now. It's going to be free. It's going to be a global event. Thousands will participate, and I want to help you maximize your career. I'm also here with my Alonzo, and I want you to get your questions ready. Start asking questions so we can help you here. But Alonzo's with me. He and I are like twin brothers. If you actually spoke to us enough, you'd actually see it, and you actually see the things that we do. And I want him to introduce himself, talk to you for a minute, and ask questions, because we can't help you if you don't ask your questions. Alonzo, over to you.
Thanks so much for that wonderful introduction, Mike. Yeah, this is my brother right here. It's amazing. When we first met, we aligned so well. It was just an instant click, and we think, act, same interests, same goals, same desires for the people who are wanting to become cloud architects in those different facets of what cloud architecture careers can do for them. And I'm all for it. I'm all here to help and support you. Again, my name is Alonzo Coleman, Chief Marketing Officer, cloud architect, as well as someone who's focused on making sure your brand exemplifies who you are as a competent cloud architect. We want to answer your questions. We want to get you on track to the quickest, fastest, most competent way to becoming a cloud architect in those different facets. It could be a networking architect, a big data architect, a cloud security architect, or even just a generalist architect like myself. So please strap in, get your questions, and we're looking forward to answering for you.
Absolutely. Tyrone, do we have any questions yet? Because if so, I'll start with him. If not, I'll talk about important career topics. Not yet. I thought I saw a couple pop in there.
I know we got to have a couple.
Actually, so let's, Tyrone, please take the first, and then we'll do the second question from Gregory.
Okay, from Gregory. Blessings all. I recently posted in the general Slack general channel about creating a group for the newbies to no avail. Can you provide some guidance on how to effectively reach out to the community?
Gregory, you're trying to take the magic out of our program. So I'm going to tell you what I really want you to do. I don't want you to form a Slack community with newbies. When you have newbies, let's say you put 10 newbies in a room, you've got 10 people that don't know what to do. Why would you want that? Our communities are built where we have experts, intermediary, and newbies together. Because if you're stuck in a house and the lights are out and you're blindfolded, you want somebody with night vision glasses to get you out of the house. You don't want to be stuck. So I don't want to put you with a bunch of newbies. If you can find a bunch of newbies out there on the internet that all don't know what to do. They go to Reddit to ask questions. They get 50 different wrong answers. That's not what I want. Gregory, we built a lot of communities in our Slack community. There are a tremendous number of them. Go out there and find one of them. The Navy SEALs have what I call a swim buddy. And when they go to BUDS or Basic Underwater Demolition School, which is some of the hardest training in the world, they tie somebody to their swim buddy. And they can't compete without their swim buddy. They're in a race, they got a swim buddy. They're in a training evolution, they got a swim buddy. And that's the whole point of putting everybody together. So when you said you wanted to create a group for newbies, we don't want to create a group for newbies. We've got a tremendous number of groups, so please use one of the existing groups that's actually there. Now, in your next class, which is tomorrow, my recommendation is to do this. It's live. Ask who wants to work with me. And I promise you, you'll find 5 or 10 or 15 people. They'll already have a group and they'll invite you to the group. That's why we do classes live. That's why we do them on Zoom, because I want you to be with people that are good. That's why every project we actually have has there. So go out there and talk to people. That's what I would actually do. And I know you said in your next comment, you mentioned newbies and veterans, but in the comment you put over here, you said for the newbies to no avail. So please go out there and communicate. Now you got class on Thursday. Let me tell you, Slack, email, text, instant messaging, that is not a way to reach out to people. It's good in between classes, but pick up the phone and call somebody. Reach out and touch someone, like the phone company said. You do that, I promise you got a lot of people that are willing, and excited to work with you. Go do that. And then send me a Slack message and tell me how much fun you're having with this group, how much you're learning. Figure out which community you are. We've got big groups in the UK. We've got big groups in New York, big ones in Atlanta, big ones in Dallas. There's ones in Houston. They're in every major city. So let's figure out where you want, and let's get you in the right group with people that have lots of experience and some new. And then you can all make each better, because every one of us has a different skill. Every one of us has something different to add. And when you put a lot of people from diverse backgrounds together, magic happens. So go out there and ask somebody in class. We got a class tomorrow and I can't wait. I'll be teaching it. It'll be fun.
Okay. Where do you project the market for cloud architects will be in the next few years?
Gregor, I see the cloud architect market going up, 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 and up. So here's what I want you to understand. Cloud architecture is AI architecture, because you can't do the AI without the cloud or the data center. Now, guess what? Cloud is your infrastructure. Now, I don't care if it's a private cloud, and you're going to see a lot more private clouds, a public cloud, a hybrid multi-cloud, or any kind of cloud like a super cloud. All they really are is somebody else's network in a data center. So cloud will be huge. Now, I do see engineering careers going down, 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 and down, and that's why we no longer sell engineering careers. And it's not that I don't love engineers. Engineers are special people. They're super smart. I like to call them wizards. They take our architecture diagrams and build and designs and bring it to life. They're awesome. But the technology is changing. The cloud systems are becoming much easier to manage than the traditional systems we used to have. Software can now be right itself with the AI that we actually have. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So a lot of those jobs that cloud admins, DevOps engineers do, cloud engineers do, much of that can be replaced by technology or outsourced. But you can't outsource the architect job. Now, as it turns out, businesses are really struggling to achieve digital transformation. Upwards of 80 to 90% of digital transformation projects fail. What? 80 to 90% of all digital transformation projects fail to deliver the results. And here's the reason why. They got tech-happy architects, and they're getting laid off and fired by the day and being replaced by business-oriented architects, because you can't solve a business problem if you don't understand the business. So Gregory, you can see what I saw throughout my 25-year architecture career. First, 25 years ago, we were pretty techy. It was kind of cool and it was kind of fun. We lived in dungeons. We were planning stuff on whiteboards. It was really fun. And then that technical architect job, which was really a fancy engineer, moved way to the solution architect job. And as the solution architect, we were 50% tech, 50% business, and we were designing, presenting, and selling stuff on our product set. So if I was Cisco, when I was a solution architect, I'd sell Cisco stuff. In AWS, solution architect would design, present, and sell AWS stuff. Well, here's the problem. Nobody is single cloud. Nobody is single vendor networking. Nobody could use half of their security stuff. And in the end, you may have a network that's got a Palo Alto firewalls and checkpoint firewalls and somebody else's IDIPS systems and an Oracle database and a Mongo database, and you're on AWS, you're on Azure, you've got that on your Nutanix cloud, and then in the end, it all becomes either cloud architecture or enterprise architecture. So next thing I saw is the cloud architect roles became about 70% business, 30% tech, and the enterprise architect jobs are about 80% business and 20% tech. And Gregory, I've seen it. You want an architect that earns $500,000 a year? Almost all business, a little tech. So they're becoming more and more business oriented, more and more leadership oriented, and more design and very specified roles. As it stands right now, Gregory, we're the only people teaching architecture, except for Penn State University. They also have a master's degree program in architecture, but that's it. Everything else out there right now is, really speaking, engineering programs, and that's why we have to retrain everybody else. But incredible job market, and you're going to love it.
Diggleman, can you use QoS on a private cloud? I'm assuming that means quality of service, but Diggleman, can you please confirm what that acronym is?
Yeah, so Dingleman, let's work on the assumption you're using quality of service. Everything you can do in the public cloud, you can do in the private cloud, but you can do it better in the private cloud because you've got higher performance. For example, I can use a 13 million IOPS RAID card in a server like nothing. I'm sorry, a 19 million IOPS RAID card in my server, spend 300 grand for it. And if I want to get close to that on the cloud, I'm going to spend millions of dollars a month for the same service that I could get for a few $100,000. And I can't really get 19 million IOPS on the cloud. And if I did, I'd have to go out to this Israeli company called NetApp, and they'd have to basically turn FSX for Lustre into block storage with their software. And it's not the simplest solution, but it's the best you can do on the cloud. But on my data center, I can do it. On my data center, I can run quality of service on my network. I can run rate limiting on my network. I can run traffic prioritization on my network. I can run private VLANs, and I can run much greater levels of security on my network. I have no latency to reach it because there's no wide area network for the most part if it's in a campus environment on my private network. And guess what? I can buy a server for 300 grand for Dell, and over the course of 4 years, guess what that thing cost me? About 300 grand. And in the public cloud, if I convert that to EC2 engines or compute engine instance or Azure virtual machines, it's going to be a few $1 million. So public cloud offers the world's greatest agility. It's unbelievable. Agility and scalability of the private cloud enables businesses to deploy new applications, trying new business processes at a velocity that gives them an extreme competitive advantage. But when you need maximum compute performance, and you need maximum control, and you need maximum security, you can do a better job in your private network, and it's much cheaper.
Back to Gregory. I found out my current company will be laying 50 other engineers and myself off. How will you recommend for me to proceed with the program?
Same way you'd proceed with the program, as if that has nothing to do with it. Put as much effort as you can into being great. That's what I would do. The only difference is, if I was working, I could probably study 2 hours a day. And if I wasn't working, I might be able to study 12 or 14 or 16 hours a day. Now, Gregory, that's what I did when I went into my first tech job. I actually took a break from my internal medicine job for a little while, studied 16 hours a day. I came out the room for food, to say hi to my wife, to talk to my wife, and I went right back in my room and I studied. So what I would say is study as much as you can, Gregory. And while I was at it, I might talk to my employer about all the cool stuff I can do that's not engineering, and maybe you can continue to work for them. Look, I hate to say it, but engineers are going to get laid off all the time. They're going to be laid off because they generally don't bring revenue into the business. Architects sell. Sales engineers don't get laid off if they're good at their job. They bring traffic in and money in. Post-sales engineers support people, etc., are in a position. So I would say go out there and get it. Fight, 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 and train and train and train some more. I don't want to see you on the side.
No.
I want to see you go out there like your life depends on it. And guess what? If you're out of your job, if you're losing your job soon, your life does depend on it. So go out there and fight and win. Greg, you'll do great.
From Vignesh, what is the difference between AS and VLAN separation? I'm assuming, but I won't. Please confirm that's autonomous system, Vignesh, but please elaborate with the acronyms.
Yeah, please. Well, first, Vignesh, this is a forum for career stuff. Now, I'm happy to talk to you about this, but I don't know whether you mean availability zone. I don't need whether you mean autonomous system. And the level of separation we can do in a data center has nothing to do with what we can do in the cloud. Okay, autonomous system versus VLAN. So here's the thing. An autonomous system is everything under somebody's control. So it could include 10,000 VLANs, and each VLAN is in a different IP subnet. All a VLAN is chopping a switch into a logical switch. So if I've got a switch that's got 100 ports in it, and I decide to take 20 ports and put it in one VLAN, and 20 ports putting in another VLAN, and 20 ports in another, what I'm really doing is chopping the switch into multiple switches, a virtual switch. That's really what a virtual LAN is. Now, an autonomous system is everything under my control. All of Amazon could be considered one autonomous system to the world, which may have thousands of VLANs. And we can also have an autonomous system with several autonomous systems inside of it. If we're dealing with something called the BGP confederation, I can have one public autonomous system and 10 or 15 little mini autonomous systems inside of that public system. So all an autonomous system means routing under somebody's control. All a VLAN means a virtual LAN, but it's really a virtual switch, just a percentage of a virtual switch. Good question.
Back to Gregory, I've noticed a lot of international students in the program, and he continued with, I am Haitian as well.
Gregory, that's the best thing we can have in the world is a whole lot of international students. The best way to have no innovation in life is to take everybody that looks the same, walks the same, talks the same, that goes to the same country club, went to the same high school and the same college. Why? They're effectively the same person. Alonzo and I are so close, we're like twin brothers. It's hard to understand how close we really are. If we didn't have Chris to think differently than us, it'd be a problem. Because Alonzo and I would make the same spelling mistakes. We'd show up to the same places at the same time. And the rest of our company would be thinking about it from a leadership perspective.
Yes.
Now, it's having Alonzo and me together with and Chris and Chao and Leo and Oforka and Eddie and Tyrone that makes us so different. And by being able to take in the skill set from all the amazing people we have, we're better. So we are blessed. We've got hundreds of people from Nigeria, hundreds of people from Cameroon, hundreds of people from India. We've got a lot of West Indian people, which is really great because I've got somebody to exchange my Jamaican recipes with or my Trinidadian recipes with, which is great. We have people in South America, which is great because I love going to South America and I especially like Peruvian ceviche. And we've got people all over Africa. I know I mentioned Nigeria and Cameroon, but we've got people in South Africa, Togo, Ghana, Kenya, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Uganda, everywhere. And we love that. And of course, we've got people in India and Pakistan, and we've got lots of people over Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore and other places. So that was my dream. My dream was to build an environment where we could have a magical group of people that all work together all over the world to help our students achieve big and lofty goals. And even this morning, or was it yesterday, a Sandeep in India reached out to me and he said, guess what, Mike? I just got a new senior solution architect job, got my first architect job from you, and now this is my second one, and I'm super excited. These are the kind of things that I live for.
From Kevin, how is pre-sales engineers different from pre-sales architect? I presume the engineer just focuses on a particular tech, like a security engineer, or just focusing on selling firewalls or et cetera.
Kevin, they're really similar. So both of them are design, present, and sell solutions. The engineer, the sales engineer, is a little more technical, but not a lot. So the architect themselves will go through a 25-year career and probably never touch a technology. The sales engineer might actually do some configuration for a proof of concept, where an architect like me is going to bring an engineer to do the proof of concept. But they're very similar. The cloud architect, solution architect, sales engineer, the job is to design a solution, present a solution, and sell a solution. So you'd say they're the same, but the difference is the architects have more business. The architect is a much higher pay. The architect is a more leadership role, a more executive role. So when I transitioned out of a sales engineer into an architect job, I went and got an MBA. I got about $100,000 of CXO relevancy training and executive presence training and emotional intelligence training, and they got me executive coaches. And I went to exercising influence courses and the things that weren't even covered in the MBA for my architect job. When I was a sales engineer, it was like, Mike, you want to go to IP voice training? Mike, you want to go for some training for this? And I'd say yes. I mean, I liked it both. But engineer, much more techie. Architect, no, all business. So you got to think about the goal. Both are there. And it all depends on the company. There's companies like Cisco where sales engineers don't have to be too techie at all. And they can bring in experts to do everything, including a proof of concept. And there's other places where sales engineers are pretty techie. But as a rule, as an architect, we're not allowed to touch our customers' technology. And if you're at AWS or Microsoft or Google or at IBM or Cisco or KPMG, at Accenture or Deloitte, and you're an architect and you try to somebody's technology, it won't work out well for you. But especially your clients, where the engineers are more techie. But they're still in the design, present, and sell role, so they're fairly similar. If you guys have career questions, please ask us. We want to help you. Pile them in. We're here. Alonzo and I are here. We've got people hired at all the world's greatest companies, and I want to help you.
And let's just make the room. Oh, this is from Mark. How are you, Mark? Many engineers want to transition into becoming architects. What's one key to their success based on your experience?
So, Mark, this is one of the most challenging things I've ever seen. I often say, and not for you, Mark, but I often say it's easier for me to take a nurse, a pharmacist, a doctor, someone that was selling cars, someone that was selling houses, and turn them into an architect than it actually is a cloud engineer. Now, you wouldn't think so, and here's the reason why. When I have an engineer, and when you have an engineer, the engineer has a lot of focus on tech. And they have to. So when I was a network engineer, I was thinking about the BGP routing protocol that was out there. I was thinking of the underlying intermediate systems to intermediate systems, or OSPF. I was really heavily thinking on, do I prepend this? Do I match it? Do I match a community? Do I tag something? What's my distribute list going to be like? Whether am I using a route map? That's what I thought. I thought, well, that hands-on implementation stuff. And then I became an architect. And when I became an architect, then that wasn't my focus anymore. My focus was the following. How do I improve that business's revenue? How do I reduce that organization's operational expenses? How do I help the people in the organization do more in the same amount of time? How do I help people collaborate across countries? How do I make the business better? So the secret for the engineers, and don't get me wrong, the engineers are the best prepared people to become architects, is forgetting engineering. And that's the hard thing. When an engineer transitions to be an architect, they have to constantly think, this is not my focus anymore. And my team will still see me struggle with it. I love tech so much that sometimes I just want to find out. You should have seen me, Mark, at the conference. You know, Richard's there, and I'm asking him about f-stop, and I'm talking about the ISO of the film, and we're talking about lighting temperatures, and I was getting my geeky on. Really was. And my audio engineer, Douglas, wow, this guy's magic. I'm talking to him about signal strength and impedance. It was great, right? Okay, Mark. But the reality is, Every time I spoke on that, you know what I forgot? The conference, because I was busy thinking about the tech. And Chris had to bring me back and say, Mike, remember, you're the architect here. And remember, you're the CEO at Focus This. So the biggest thing that engineers have is they love the tech too much. Engineers want to go with the newest, coolest solution. Microservices and serverless, everybody, when it might be the worst thing that the business could do. It could be the best. It could be the worst. So the key to transition from engineering to architecture is to remember this is not about the tech. It's about the business. And that's the thing. Because as an engineer, we have to be zoomed in what's in front of me. What's in that BGP rib? What's in the fib? Now we need to take a step back and think deeper and think bigger. And that is the following. What is the impact of this change on the rest of the organization? What is if I do this, how does it affect it? So it's a shift in focus. It's shifting from the technology itself and focusing on the technology to focusing on how do I improve that business? When an engineer can do that, they become magical, because an engineer with deep knowledge understands how the systems work. You combine that with the right business, the right leadership, the right sales, the executive presence, and you're there. As long as you can remember, you're not an engineer anymore. That's the biggest key of focus, is to remember these kind of things. With that, you'll be great. So that's the key to success. Now, folks, don't be shy. You're not asking questions, and we really want to help you. So please ask your questions so we can help you.
You know, and I also want to chime in on what Mark's question is as well. How you brand yourself is very important. So you can go about transitioning yourself from the more focusing on the minutiae of the technology as a cloud engineer would, but then raising the altitude to that 10,000 foot level for you to look at the overall architecture itself. But how do you communicate that to the people that you want to know that you are a transitioning or a competent cloud architect? And that requires you to brand yourself. Start removing the things off of your resume that yell engineer, and start including things, creating discussions, posts, and so forth about cloud architectural news, thought leadership, things of that nature, so that when people see Mark or whoever and they want to become a cloud architect, it's these updates in your LinkedIn profile that screams they're not only a person that's interested in cloud architecture, but they are cloud architects who are being strategic, competent, and thoughtful on their approaches about what's going on in the world. Say, for instance, when it comes to cloud security, with what's going on, with what happened with Vegas over the summer, what happened with the Department of Justice and the DOD also over the summer, and a lot of other events that speak to why cloud architecture needs to be reinforced, whether it's with networking, security, or what other topics that are pertinent to successful enterprise and cloud architecture. So definitely learn. We teach you how to brand yourself. We do all these things to ensure that you're competent, understanding what the tech is, what it does, when you would use it, but also being able to verbalize, showcase yourself in social media as well as in person, that you are a competent, capable architect as well. And we can do that for you at Go Cloud Careers.
Absolutely. Please, guys, ask your questions. Otherwise, I'm going to have a nice, easy day. I'm going to get back to my content creation. I really want to help you, but I can't help you if you don't ask our questions.
And I know people, all right, thank you for the answer. I ask as many times, many people are hesitant because of lacking tech skills, not realizing that it's the non-technical skills that take center stage in their career. Couldn't have said it better, Mark. You can verbalize technology all day, but it takes you back. That's the conundrum, is that people think that it's all technical to become a cloud architect. So they start speaking technical, but it rounds them right back into the cloud engineering role that either they don't want or they're trying to avoid or get out of. So focusing on those business aspects, CXO relevancy, emotional intelligence, business acumen. You got to learn how to talk the talk. You got to know how to verbalize and acknowledge and understand your audience. And I'll tell you, when it comes to pitching cloud architecture to, say, for instance, a CEO, the last thing they want to hear about is technology. They don't want to spend the money on it anyway, to be honest with you. So that's where the sales pitch comes in. That's where you understanding how you can relate to the audience comes in, so that you can sell that value. You can sell what it's going to do for them, less and focus more on those benefits and less on that buy once, cry once situation where they know they have to pay for it, but let's focus on what the benefits are. That requires sales and relating to the customer. And we know that a CEO speaking to them is going to be different than speaking to a, say, for instance, a distinguished engineer. We teach you how to identify that audience, know how to relate and speak to that audience, and be able to bring and drive that point home of these benefits and ultimately close the sale. So ask your question. We are more than happy.
Yeah, ask your questions. And Tyrone, go out of order and go to the LinkedIn user one. And then after that, we'll take the rest.
Okay. From the LinkedIn user, in presenting a solution, does a solution architect also present the proof of concept as well? And will you say having a bit of engineering background make you a good architect?
Well, LinkedIn user, I would say a doctor does medicine, an airplane pilot flies an airplane, a nurse follows out the doctor's plan, and an architect designs, presents, and sells, and an engineer builds. Now, I've taken people that were engineers, and it takes me 6 to 12 months to turn them into a cloud architect. And you give me a nurse, and you give me 6 to 12 months, and they're still going to be working as a cloud architect. Now, I've done thousands of proof of concepts. Here's the way the proof of concept works. I show up in an Armani or Canali suit. I go talk to the clients and the executives. I bring a team of engineers with me. I go manage the team of engineers. I take those engineers out to lunch along with the client. I take those engineers to dinner. I coach those engineers on how to get promoted, and I tell their manager what a great job they did, and I get them a bonus or a cap award so they get paid extra to do a good proof of concept with me. I'm an architect. I don't touch the technology. So do I think it's advantageous to know how to build something? I think you need to know how the technology works. So LinkedIn user, let me give you the difference. Right now, I can teach you hands-on engineering. In fact, we're going to do some Cisco commands. Mark Milunovich over there is going to understand it. We're going to type router BGP 65312 into a Cisco router that's identifying the router, turning on BGP in the autonomous system. Now I'm going to do neighbor 192.168 remote AS 65313, and I'm going to type one command, network 10.0.0 mask 255.255.255.0, and actually, you know what? I need to do a neighbor activate statement. Poof! BGP just got turned on. Now you've done hands-on experience. You know what that doesn't teach you? It doesn't teach you the BGP messages, which you must know as an architect. You must know all the messages and what they look like, whether it be a keep alive message or an open message, for example. It doesn't teach you the finite state machine, where example, this goes from idle to open connect, et cetera, et cetera. You won't learn that, and that's what you need to understand. It won't teach you, when I look for this subnet, should I tag it? Should I change the weight of that subnet to load share? It won't teach you any of that. It'll teach you how to. And how to LinkedIn user is really awesome. It is, if your job is how to. But as an architect, it's all about how do we make this? What is the impact of this change on the business? Keep that in the back of your mind. So, poof. So it is very beneficial if you understand how the technology works. In fact, LinkedIn user, I'm going to tell you it's impossible to do the job. You can't design what you don't understand. But I know a tremendous number of engineers who don't know how the technology works. They know how to build it. So I want to separate it. If you wanted to have you ever seen the Burj Al Arab in Dubai? It's beautiful. It looks like a sailboat. This beautiful building is covered in silk, got a nice little helipad in there. You walk in the lobby and there's waterfalls. Oh, it's beautiful. I spent some time there. I loved it. But, the person that designed that beautiful building is an architect. Now, they brought in a lot of people from all over the world to go build that building. They don't design the building. So an engineer is a construction worker. They build it. But people don't ask construction workers to design their hotel, to design their shopping mall, to design their business. So it's great if you have an engineering background, but it's just as easy for me to get you hired if you don't, as long as you're properly trained. So love engineers, awesome. Love taking non-engineers and making them architects. And I'll give you some examples. Ivan Tamba, Jordan Kitko, for example, Coyote, all college students hired by AWS. And I don't mean associate architect jobs, I mean real jobs. No experience whatsoever. Daniel Bosa, we trained him, and he got hired by JP Morgan Chase, and he didn't even graduate high school. And his last job was selling shoes at Nordstrom. Balwinder was a stay-at-home mom hired by Microsoft. Lenny Burnett was a video editor, and he's a great cloud architect now. And I could give you examples after examples. Of course, I could also tell you we had somebody like Jawad, who was a cloud engineer, who's now working at AWS and doing great. Someone like Pritipal St. John, who's now an enterprise architect, or Angela, who's an enterprise architect. Your starting position has no bearing on your finishing position. I know doctors who used to be nurses. They were nurses for 10 years. They went to medical school. Great. And I knew people that went to college and became doctors with no background. They still did great. The point is all of you can do wonderful. You just got to get the right skills. And you can all do it.
From Gregory, I am nowhere near the branding portion of the program. Alonzo, can you please provide some details about this portion of the program? Absolutely, Gregory. So once you go through the process of, we want to focus on the competency for becoming a cloud architect, of course, but once you get to the branding, we're going to convert how you look, what people see both in person and virtually, how you communicate, what you post, how you post it, the whole full spectrum of what people identify you as in person and online. That's what we're going to be discussing. We're going to be fortifying who you are as a cloud architect as you go about your journey. We're going to start reducing what you were into who you are right now. And that requires a elimination of posts that may not exactly exemplify who you are as a professional, how you carry yourself in person and online, what topics you discuss on, say, for instance, LinkedIn. These are the things that we're going to be discussing with you and building with you. There are prior soft skills class that I've taught that are going to be available for you. You can feel free to check those out at your convenience to kind of get a feel of what we are going to use in experience and tools and resources to convert you in deed, name, and in social media presence, who you are as a competent cloud architect. But also feel free to reach out to me on Slack as well. We can have another detailed discussion if you'd like. From Indy Yasser, does anyone review the architect's design in an organization to make sure it values the company and not into an actual disaster?
Well, MD Yasser, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to present two things to Alonzo right now, and I want you to look at his facial expressions. Reading body language is critical. Alonzo, I, in my 25 years experience, designed you a solution for you. Trust me, it's great. Look at him. It looks like he's like, how fast can I get Mike Gibbs out of my office? Now, MD Yasser, Alonzo, thank you for the opportunity to consult on your business. After the discussion with you, your chief information officer, your department heads, and your team of engineering, I went back to my organization. I built a team of over 50 engineers. The combined experience of this team is over 1,000 years. We brought cloud security experts in, we brought IAM experts in, we brought public key infrastructure experts in, we brought data scientists in, we brought data engineers in, we brought artificial intelligence experts, networking experts, and cloud experts. Together, we design a solution that's going to maximize your business performance. As your concerns, it should address increasing your revenue by improving the customer experience. By leveraging artificial intelligence, it'll make you more operationally efficient. We think we can get you a 16% increase in the productivity of your employees, which should reduce your operational cost and increase your bottom line by 3%. Alonzo, would you like to hear more about my architecture?
Absolutely, Mike. Let's set up a meeting.
So here's the difference, MD. Well, the first time I tried to do it myself as a 25-year architect, and the client looked at me and said, "Seriously, Mike, are you crazy?" And the second time I went and I brought in a team of diverse individuals with diverse backgrounds, and that's how every architecture. MDS or architecture is a team sport, which is why you must have great leadership. Now, does anybody review your designs? Well, if you do it like I do, I don't do any architectures alone. I get 20 to 50 people in every single architecture, and we all agree on it. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. We all agree on it. Now, and I do this with 25 years experience. And I also run my architectures past other expert architects that I know, and they run them past me. So that's me. Now, MDSer, it depends on the kind of client you work with. Generally speaking, if you work for an organization and you're dealing with what they call a pots and pans deal, which is basically super small, say 100,000, 200,000, or 500,000, people do it in a single person, nobody sees it, and they hope, and it's based on the person's expertise. When you work on $1 billion deal, and that's what I work on, you typically bring it to a design team and you get other people to expect it. Any deal from say 1 million to 50 million, generally speaking, there's also validated designs and groups that are there. So the key MDSer is not to design stuff yourself. The key is to know how to design it yourself and make sure you get other people there. So I try not to do anything myself. I know what I know and I know what I don't know. That Mark that's on here that you saw in the chat box, he knows more about software-defined WAN than I will ever know. Now, I probably know more about PIM sparse mode and IP multicast than 99.9999% of the network architects that are there, because that's my expertise. So the point is, I'd rather bring in a Mark. I know a Mohammed that's real good too. I bring him in too. I got a friend, Nagaraja. We did our CCIEs together. He's got a different specialty, and I'm going to bring them all. So that's what you do. The real thing of an architect is not to be an engineer. You've got to have executive presence. You've got to have leadership skills. You've got to have sales skills. And you got to sell people to work with you, for you. Sell the management to give you resources. Sell the client on how to do it. I almost really want to rename this as the sales job that has system design in it as opposed to a system design job. It is a great job. And yes, you can get people to review your designs, and I encourage you to do so on every single architecture you ever work on. I know I do. So please, everyone, bring us your questions. Otherwise, Alonzo and I are going to have a high productivity day doing corporate Go Cloud career stuff, but we love helping people. So ask us your questions.
Back to Kevin. How can you cultivate an executive presence?
Kevin, you need to follow the directions we've given you. Really master them. It's about the use of space, the use of time, your vocal tone variation, where to pause, when to use gestures and when not. It's all in there. And truth be told, Kevin, we all learn it at different times. Now, I know it can be taught because I was taught executive presence. I'm an introvert, a shy guy. I never had any executive presence when I was younger. And I learned. Now, Kevin, and I know you're far away over there in Australia, if you would have seen the executive presence of the students that came to our class, they were there. But Kevin, you've been in our program for a little bit. Truth be told, the last time we spoke to you, I feel like you're 4 to 6 months out from being ready to interview where we really have that executive presence. You are really smart and really capable, but I feel like you're still 3/4 of the way there and you need that little bit of polish. And we all get there at different times. But Kevin, you're doing great. Give those presentations, watch yourself on those presentations, and listen to the feedback our team gives you when you turn them in. That'll get you your executive presence. And Kevin, I love that you're thinking about it. I love that you're working on it, and you're a really bright young person. You've got a really, really bright future. But this one takes time. I've been working on my executive presence now for 25 years, and I get better each day. But you're doing better, you're doing better, you're doing better. So keep it up.
Back to Gregory. In reference to the earlier comment about being an international student, will my accent play a role in determining if I'm a good candidate as a cloud architect?
Well, Gregory, you know what all my teams look like? They're as multinational and international as you can find. In fact, let's talk about my team right now. We've got me, Chris, and Alonzo in the US. The three of us are semi-Americans in that I've got a home in Greece. And I'm not really sure whether I'm a Greek person or American person. You got Alonzo, he's as American as they get. So Alonzo's American, Chris is American, and Chao is obviously Vietnamese. We have Leo in Brazil. We have Manuela in Colombia. Now we have Tyrone, who's awesome, and he's in Cape Town, South Africa. We've got Aforka, who's in Cameroon, and we've got Eddie in Cameroon. So you know what my team looks like. Now, I will tell you, most corporations are telling their hiring managers, we need more diversity in our business. Because the reality is, people are waking up and they're saying, I can't have all the same people. So companies are telling their managers, hire more diverse people. So having an accent will be a strategic advantage when you're actually looking for a job, especially when a hiring manager is trying to comply with more people from different locations. So I don't think you have anything to worry about. And having an accent's awesome. Now, Gregory, you've got a little bit of an accent, and I suspect you speak French too, and maybe some Creole. Now, just think how strategic it would be to have somebody that speaks French. Having a French person means I can deal with Haiti, I can deal with France, I can deal with parts of Canada. It means a lot of Africa speaks French, like the French side of Cameroon, for example. And Ghana, I think, speaks a pretty good amount of French, and there's a lot of countries that speak French. So having you with an accent is a big thing. It's a great thing. I think Joe Millen asked me the same question. He was from Haiti. 3 weeks later, after our training program, he was a senior solution architect at AWS, but he did have a really strong tech and a good business background before we got there. So no, it's not going to hurt you. I think it's going to help you.
I think if nothing else, think about it this way. We have such a global community. I mentioned we have people from Seattle to Singapore. We have people from Ireland, Scotland, Brazil, the Philippines, Singapore. We're everywhere. But what the underpin for all of us is that we are seeking, no matter what our level of competency is, to become great cloud architects. So it doesn't matter that you have an accent, but your competency will be the language that hiring managers will understand more than anything else. When you're able to articulate these concepts, be able to drive home your excitement, your energy about creating solutions for businesses, internal solutions for different silos, or whatever it is that this organization needs you to do, that's going to go far more. They're going to recognize that with so much intensity over any accent. And I'm not even saying your accent don't even look at it as a hindrance or some sort of handicap. It showcases that you're able to articulate concepts, regardless of if English or something else is your second, maybe even third language, and you're still able to drive ideas and concepts across to that hiring manager. I'll say that that's going to be a strength for you.
Definitely. And I always look for multilingual people because it's an international world. The more languages you speak, the more clarity and communication. Now, Gregory, I need to get this from you. Send me a message on Slack. So everybody knows I love reggae, but there's a kind of music in Haiti that's really interesting. It's a little like calypso music. It's a little different than reggae. If you could send it to me. My neighbors play it all the time, and I've been trying to find it in Pandora because I really love that. So since you're on Slack, if you could send that to me.
Back to MD. Can you share what contents are taught in the program?
Everything you need to get a job as a cloud architect and succeed as a cloud architect, which means every one of the networking, data center, and cloud technologies that you need to use, how they work, how to design them, how to present to an audience, how to sell to an audience, how to build a business case, how to lead, how to speak with executive presence, how to build a resume, how to build a LinkedIn profile to get people to come to you, how to interview for the job, everything. I look at these little 20-hour, AWS certified solution architect programs, and I'm like, yeah, we spend 700 hours in our training program. And it's not just me teaching. We have enterprise architects, application architects, big data architects that come into the program, network architects that come to the program, all kinds of cloud architects and solution architects. We have PhD business school professors that come into the program. We have executives from companies that come in and talk to our students. It is a well-rounded everything. And that's why our students are working every day. And that's why every day, almost every day, somebody says, Mike, I just got hired. Today we found out one of our students, Nicole Chow, she was a teacher. She got her first job with us and she got her second promotion. A gentleman named Sandeep yesterday wrote me the most beautiful message, and I might even read it to give you the concept. And it says, "Hi, Mike, this is Sandeep from India. I'm one of your international students. I wanted to reach out and tell you how much your architect program changed my life. I started the training 3 years ago, and since then, I've not only aced the cloud architect and solution architect interviews, but I've worked in these roles for various companies. Tomorrow, I'm joining another multinational as a senior AWS architect, and I owe it all to you. Your guidance, motivation, and support have been incredible, and I can't thank you enough. I'm so grateful we crossed paths." Now, I get messages like this every day, and here's the thing. I'll get you everything you need to know and get you hired, as long as you do the work. And the average cloud architect earns a little over $800 a day. So the sooner we get you in, the sooner we get you out, which means if the average architect earns $16,000 a month, the faster we can get you in training, the faster we get you hired. But MDS, I just want you to know what you need to do, and I want you to have a great career. It's an incredible career, and you'll love it. It's the best job I had. Look, I worked as an engineer. I was about the 6 worst months of my life. But when I became an architect, it was like heaven. I got paid double and triple to do a third of the work. And I got all the respect. It was just wonderful. But that's what we teach. And Tyrone, if you give a link to the program, he can literally click and he can see every lesson that's taught in the program.
From Sid, does experience as a business analyst help as a solution architect?
Said it'll be slightly helpful, yes. So I want to talk about the difference between an accountant and a finance professional and an analyst versus a decision maker. An accountant, and I go to the basic, when I call my accountant, the accountant says, "Mike, you spent this much money on tech. You spent this much money on this. You spent much money. You spent this much money on your staff." That's what my accountant tells me. If I call a finance professional, they say, "Mike, these are your financial resources. We can take these resources, we can make you this much money on them." So one's trying to figure out how they can use my money to make money. The other one's telling me how much money I spent and how I can save money. A business analyst is really looking at the business as it is today, and that will help you. But we need to turn you more into a management or a strategy consulting, because architecture is consulting. We need to go from the what it is to how we want it to be in the future. And that's architecture. And I like the TOGAF model for the following reason. It helps people not think of architecture and engineering in the same context. Here's the TOGAF model, and pretty much every architect follows this, whether they're a cloud architect, a network architect, if they're doing real architecture work. If they're not doing this, they're doing more engineering. We start by asking the client, and said, you're going to have some experience here. What's the goal for your business? Where do you see the business 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? What are your main constraints right now? What is your main competition? How is the economy affecting you? How are the international laws and regulations affecting you? We got to get that information. From there, we have to figure out, how does their business run today? Map out all their business processes, their organizational charts, the customer journey, the support journey, all of it. You got to learn that business, right? And then we have to work with the client to design the way the business wants in the future. How do we want them to sell? What's that customer interaction going to look like? Does that require a new website? Does that require a new this? Does that require a new this? Now, I've got a team. Got lots of people in Cameroon. I love Cameroon. I was wearing a Cameroonian football jersey yesterday. We got a lot of friends in Cameroon. So, I've got this team in Cameroon that's an expert on this. As it turns out, I got these really great software engineers in the Ukraine. I got all these really great people in South America doing this. How do I get them talking together to work more efficiently? That's architecture. I've got a business that sells a product. How do we make sure we have what product we need, what we need it, and forecast demand so we don't buy product we don't need and finance it? That's architecture. So yes, your experience as a business analyst will definitely help. In fact, I've retrained a tremendous number of business analysts. I'd say a third of my students come from a business analyst background, and they do incredibly well. So yes, it will help, but it's not going to be enough on its own. So I would say make sure you get what you need, but yes, it's going to be a big advantage, and I would love to see that on a background when I deal with someone, because it's showing me you're focused on the business, which is what an architect is supposed to be focused on. These are good questions.
Dr. Gregory, is it a bonus to know how to use Visio for the design process?
Not much. Gregory, I can teach someone how to use a drawing program in 4 hours. So saying you know that is like saying I know how to put on a shirt and put on a tie. At least you know how to tie a tie, which is an advantage, but it's assumed that you know how to. Here's the funny thing, Gregory. I haven't used Microsoft Visio in 25 years. I use PowerPoint for all my architectures. Some people use Lucidchart, some people use Draw.io. And once I reached the medium point in my career, I started taking pictures of napkin sketches and pieces of paper, and I sent it to the graphic artists. So we have to look at whether we're talking about big picture or little picture. I'm an architect. If I use a virtual machine, I don't give a darn whether it's an AWS EC2 instance, a Google Compute Engine instance, an Azure virtual machine, an Oracle virtual machine, a VMware virtual machine, or a Citrix Zen virtual machine. It's the same stuff. Kind of like olive oil. I could buy it from 3 stores. It's still olive oil. And I'm Greek, so we use a lot of olive oil. So I draw boxes. And that way they're there. So I don't even use these icons. I don't use any, and that way my diagrams look very generic for the customer. And when we build them out, yeah, we can swap virtual machine with EC2 instances and such, and it's there. So is it a skill you need to know how to use a drawing program? Yes. But believe me, an architecture is not a picture. An architecture is a document that explains the business challenges, that explains the structure, that explains the technology and what is the technology and how is the technology working and how is the technology improving the business. It explains everything. So what we're really concerned about is your writing skills. Can you write it in a manner that people understand? Can you communicate the message? Well, how you draw your pictures, I don't care. I mean, here's the reality. Alonzo is an expert graphic artist. When I worked at Cisco, there were experts like Alonzo, and I would send my picture to them and say, make this look real pretty. Gregory, it sounds terrible. I still do it right now. I still send my pictures to Alonzo and say, please make them pretty. Because that's what we do as architects. So it's a baseline skill. I wouldn't say it's a huge advantage. It's definitely a necessary skill, but it's a very easy skill to learn. So now it's like when I see people put down know how to use Microsoft Office on their resume, and it's like, yeah, it's expected. I wouldn't put that there.
From Nikelia, how to move forward if you are an introvert as an architect?
Well, Nikelia, I'm an introvert. I'm actually shy too, but you wouldn't know because I've been trained out of it. So the best way to get out of something you're uncomfortable with is to do it. I'll give you an example. And I'll give you lots of examples throughout my life, but I'll give you the most common example. I was afraid of snakes for my entire life. They give me the creeps. And I adopted this beautiful little kitten. Her name is Cindy. I've had her for 3 years. She's the second love of my life after my wife, my little cat. She sleeps on me every night right over here, and she follows me from room to room. Now, my little Cindy loves snakes. She likes to eat them. She likes to run outside, put them in her mouth, and carry them into the house. And my wife and I do not like snakes. And I was petrified of snakes. You know what I did? I built the contraption to take the snakes out, and then it broke, and I picked one up, and I threw it out of the house, put it back safe with his snake family. I am no longer afraid of snakes because I've done it. So Nikelia, the best way to get out of it is to go out there and meet people. Go out there and talk. You know, when I'm dealing with people that have very low-level communication skills that are not my students, I say go to Toastmasters. And then after they do Toastmasters, I say that's not good enough. Now you need some heavy-duty presentation skills. And then they need to get training from somewhere. But even that, but go out there and meet people. I had somebody I worked with, his name was Mitchell. He was really clumsy with people. Really smart guy, though, but really clumsy. I would take him places where I forced him to meet people. Mitchell, go talk to that woman over there. Go talk to that guy over there. She's pretty. She makes you nervous. Go talk to her. And by the time I was done, Mitchell was a rock star, and he's a very senior architect these days. So go out and do what you're uncomfortable with. Whatever you're uncomfortable with, you'll be comfortable with. But I'm an introvert. I have a coach that I've worked with her. I've known her for 20 years. She's a senior executive at every company she's ever been. She's even been a chief financial officer. She's an introvert too. And if you want to watch the video, there's a video on my channel from Alvin DaCosta. One day I brought him on. And I really would recommend you watch that video. It's on our YouTube channel. It's on one of the Head in the Cloud shows. Alvin DaCosta is a VP over at NVIDIA. And he made the world shocked when he said, I knew Mike when he was an extreme introvert. Too shy to talk to anybody. We'd go to a party. Mike would get his silver oak wine or his Macallan 25 scotch and sit in the corner and sip his drink. Because that was me then. 20-some years later, lots of people, I'm no longer seen as an introvert. Go out there and talk to people.
From Test, do we have more travel as a cloud security architect or general cloud architect, since I am, I guess he's limited to travel for family reasons?
Well, I want you to understand why the architects need to travel. Nobody's buying your billion-dollar solution without meeting you. They're just not going to. And so that means you're going to have to meet your client in person. If you live in New York City, if you live in London, if you live in Miami, if you live in Atlanta, if you live in Raleigh, if you live in Dallas, if you live in Houston, or Chicago, or San Francisco, or LA, there's probably enough business where you don't have to travel. And when I lived in Princeton, New Jersey and worked in New York, I only traveled, 10, 15,000 miles a year as an architect because I traveled to my client's site all over New Jersey and New York and Connecticut. It was easy. In Pennsylvania. Fast forward, I'm now designing billion-dollar solutions for clients all over the world, and I'm on an airplane constantly. So understand that travel is going to be important, but your geography matters. Now, whether you're a cloud architect or a security architect, you're still going to have to travel because nobody's going to be interested. Now, what else determines your travel? How rare your skill set is. I'm one of 5 people in the world that truly have helped, that really, really have an extreme deep understanding of multicast. One was Bill Williamson at Cisco. He was incredible, but he died. There was somebody in Wales that I met that was really solid. There were 5 of us, and pretty much we worked for different companies and we consulted the world. When there's only 5 of you in the world, because your skill set's rare, every day is an airplane day. So the more rare your skill set is, the more you're going to be traveling. It's a more rare skill set as a cloud security architect as it is a cloud architect. You're going to travel more. There's a lot more generic people out there than specialist people. But you have to understand you can't do this job without getting in front of people. Now, you don't have to travel that much with modern technology. When I was younger, I traveled 1 year, 200,000 miles on just Continental Airlines, which realistically speaking is one airline. They're now United. And then there was about 50,000 on Delta, 50,000 on American, all in a single year. Because I had a rare skill. There were only 5 of us. Now, if I want to go talk about cloud computing, there's a lot of cloud architects. Deloitte's filled with them, Accenture's filled with them, KPMG is filled with them, Microsoft's filled with them, Google's filled with them. So, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Me personally, I like to pick things that nobody understands. And that's what I love. But they're there. So, Tesla, maybe I'll explain to you why I pick things that nobody in the entire world has an interest in that I know are mission critical for business. And maybe this will help you build a better career, because I want, no matter you're our students or not, I want you to all have a great life. So let me show you something. And it's a common economics thing, and it'll really, I hope it'll make a difference in how you think about things. And Tyrone, if you can help me share this when it's appropriate. Okay, so I have a macroeconomic supply and demand curve here. And here's what I want you to see. See that red dot? That red dot is salary or price. And if you pick something that everybody in the world does, let's say software programming. I can go to any college anywhere in the world. I can learn programming completely free because it's a if this then this kind of thing. So what you see is a huge supply of them. And you see this red dot, it's very low. That dot itself is salary. Why is the salary so low? Because there's a billion software engineers out there. It's not that hard to find, or some ridiculous number like that. Now, if you pick something that there's a lack of supply of, there's a real lack of supply of architects, because there's plenty of people that can do, but very few people that design. Now look at that. Look at the price or the salary just went up because the demand's given, but the supply is low. Now, when you pick up rare skills, IP multicast, there were basically 5 of us then. Here, this puts you on the supply and demand curve. Here's the price because there's nobody. And I studied it and learned it because there's nobody, because I'm an economist by nature and I love looking at supply and demand curves and I like using them to plan things. But you're now an architect. Now you get more executive presence, more leadership skills, more business acumen, more emotional intelligence. Your salary goes up. So the key with salary maximization is to do the things that employers need the most, that there's the least supply of. So that's one of my strategies. I constantly Sorry about that. I was trying to close my PowerPoint slides and boom, I closed my Google window on my Mac. But that's kind of what we're talking about. So just think about the supply and demand curve. And that's why I go for things in my own career that nobody knows, because I know those macroeconomics and microeconomics factors, but you got to do what you like as well.
From BA Pro, please enumerate some books that can help us become good cloud architects.
Absolutely. Now, here's the thing to remember. There's not really books on cloud architecture. And most of the books that I've seen, especially from one publisher, they hire people that have never even worked before. So there's not a lot of good books on architecture, but there's some things that will help you. From a BGP perspective, there's Internet Routing Architecture from Bassam Halabi, excellent book. There's also a Routing TCP/IP Volumes 1 and 2 from Jeff Dale. I recommend that. There's a book called Stevens TCP/IP, which is relatively good. And that'll give you some networking fundamentals. Now, if you really wanted to, you could get virtual machine fundamentals and switching fundamentals and all that. And you're going to need to know every single network and data center component. And guess what? There's several of them that are out there. It will be a $2,000 list of books, minimum, for you to get through this. Minimum. So there's that. You also will need books on finance, microeconomics, macroeconomics, marketing, operations management, project management, leadership, sales. I'd also recommend books on emotional intelligence, books on presentations, books on leadership. So for me, BA Pro, I've read over 4,000 books in my architecture career to make me a better architect. I can't tell you that there's any 2 or 3 books that are going to be that good. It's a lot of it. A lot of it. But I will tell you, if you get books in those disciplines, you will get a good level of skill that you actually need, at least in some of those fundamentals. But in the end of the day, you're going to have to find somebody to show you. And here's the reason why. I can give Alonzo right now some chicken. I can give Alonzo some olive oil. I can give him some garlic. I can give him pepper, salt, and oregano. I can. And believe me, Alonzo will get it. Now, if I ask him to make me a chicken souvlaki the way they do it in Neapotamus, Greece, he's going to say, Mike, I got some cool ingredients. Now, Alonzo and I are like brothers. I get Alonzo an airplane ticket. He stays in my house, which he's welcome to do anytime, and Alonzo knows that. Now, I teach him how to cook Greek food. I teach him souvlakis. I teach him how to make gyros. I teach him how to make a choriatiki salad. I teach him how to make some Greek green beans and some lentil soup. And I teach him how to make hummus. And Alonzo goes home to his wife, and he shows his wife, and his wife's all kinds of happy. And his wife calls me and thanks me, because now Alonzo is a master Greek chef. And he's fine because somebody taught him. But if I just gave him a book and said, here, do it, I promise you it's not right. And I've got proof. There's 3 Greek restaurants where I live, and the Greek owners never show up. I have no idea why. And, one day it's French people cooking Greek food. The next day it's a Chinese person, Greek food. The next day it's a Mexican person. And they're all good people, but none of them know how to cook Greek food because there's no Greek people there. So you have to be taught. That's all there. But those would be good books to help get you started. And I would read them throughout your career.
Back to MD Yasser. Do cloud architects get laid off too when you don't have much scope to bring in revenue for a company?
Well, here's the thing. Let's talk about layoffs. And I really hate to say this. Companies don't lay off their best people. I'm going to tell you that right now. What most companies do is they overhire, they hold on to people, and as soon as they're having some financial stuff, the employees are stack ranked every year by the manager. And your management says, Mike, I need you to get rid of the bottom 10 or 10% of the people you have, the worst 10%. And that's one of the ways companies get through weak people. So here's the thing. If you're not good at any job, you run the risk of being laid off. Now, let's talk about who gets laid off first versus who gets laid off second. The architects and the salespeople, assuming they're doing their job, are the last people to ever get laid off. And I'll tell you why. The architect brings money into the business. So Alonzo is now the CEO of Go Cloud Careers. I bring Alonzo $10 million of sales. Alonzo's taking me to dinner. He's buying me a good filet mignon, maybe some filet Oscar. We're drinking some Silver Oak wine. He's buying me a Macallan 25 because he just made a lot of money. Alonzo's all kinds of happy. I'm not getting laid off if he's got to do a layoff because I just brought in a lot of money. By comparison, MDS, I want you to truly think about this. I'm having a tight financial situation and I need software to be developed. Do I need to hire somebody in California? No. Do I need them to be in Chicago? No. So let's think about it. California, expensive. Chicago, less expensive, but expensive. Cayman Islands, moderately expensive. Cambodia, not super expensive. Okay. Cameroon, potentially less expensive. Cape Town, South Africa, more expensive than Cameroon, but less expensive than Cayman Island. And that's what companies do. They outsource their engineering. So MDS, or if you want to be an architect, you need training in sales. You have to learn how to sell. And if you know how to sell and you do your job, you're not going to have a hard time selling. I can honestly say this. The only time I ever had trouble as an architect selling anything was the following time. I once worked for a company called Riverstone Networks. They had the best techies in the entire world, MDSR. When you walked in there, they were all IIT graduates, which is one of the best tech schools in the entire world. Indian Institute of Technology brought some great engineers. We had the best engineers. And here's what every proof of concept would look like. Riverstone wins, and then the deal would go to Cisco. Every single time, except for the stuff that I did in the Middle East, because it was less about price. It was all about relationships. So pretty much they lost every deal. And then I went to Cisco. And when I went to Cisco, guess what they said? They said, Mike, don't ever talk to someone about the speeds and feeds. Nobody cares about that. Show them how this product will integrate into their business and how it will make them better. Guess what? Poof! Never lost. I won every single deal or almost every single deal in my life. And I always blew away my quota and I got big. And all my students, that I taught sales are fine. So the key is the architect jobs are the safest jobs in the world because they bring in money. And as long as you're good at your job, you shouldn't have anything to worry about being laid off. But if you try to think you can be an engineer in an architect job, you're going to get laid off. If you're an architect in an architect job, you will have a job that you will love. You'll love. And when engineers, and I love engineers, they're amazing. But when they're being called in to come in and work at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're not being given the respect that they need from the management, and they're getting paid a third of the architects, you can be very thankful that you trained to be an architect, you learned the business side of it, you got closer to the digital transformation and further away from the technology. That's the best advice I can give you. It's a great career. And they're the last people to get laid off, but anybody can get laid off.
From Don, hello everyone. I am interested in becoming an IAM, Identity and Access IAM architect. I'm not going to go through all that. Will your program prepare to be an IAM architect and doesn't have to be an architect role right away?
Samuel, let me talk about the IAM architect. Yeah. We can teach you how to be a great architect. Meaning we'll give you every single skill you'll need except for IAM. We deal with a little bit of IAM, but we are not an IAM architect program. We are a cloud architect training program, and they are differences. We will prepare you for a cloud architect role, which will pay you double or triple what an IAM architect role, and you'll have about 30 to 40 times the opportunities as there. We could also prepare you for a cloud security architect role, which will give you double the jobs, double the pay, and you'll have more opportunities. I want you to understand what is an IAM architect and why it's going to be one of the lowest paid of the architect roles. I want you to think about this. Alonzo and I are real close. If Alonzo knocks on my front door and I look through the window and I say, it's Alonzo, I say, welcome in. I might say, here's the keys to the house. Here's the key to the car. You can have the Mercedes, the Toyota, whichever one you like. You can, and I say, here's the key to the pool, and Alonzo's coming in because he's there. But I love Alonzo. He's like a brother to me. Now, let's say by comparison, somebody else knocks on my door and they're scary looking. We got a problem, Don. They're already knocking on my door. So IAM is the last line of defense. By comparison, if I had the ability to give Alonzo a Humvee, one of those military vehicles that can drive over everything, and a boat, and I decided to put a big ocean in front of my house, and then the ocean landed and there was a 10-mile mountainous journey, and Alonzo needed to use a Humvee. And then Alonzo had to climb a wall that he needed a special tool to climb over the wall. And now he's knocking on the door. Do you see how much more secure I would be? So when I've got a business, I can put, 2 sets of next generation firewalls in my demilitarized zone. Then I can put some IDS IPS systems in there. Then I can put some network-based access control lists in there. All this stuff is long before the IAM. So Don Moore, yes, you could become an IAM architect, but you'll have many more opportunities as security integrating IAM. What hurts IAM and the architect jobs and the IAM positions is identity and access management is typically tied to the sysadmin role, which is the lowest paying and lowest respected of all the technology jobs. So keep that in the back of your mind. I have a really good friend that's an IAM architect. His name is Isaac. He's from South Africa, and he is amazing. And he came and took our program to become a cloud architect. He's awesome. So the key is if you love IAM and you truly love it, yes, go do it. We will teach you everything other than the IAM. Sure, we'll teach you Active Directory. Sure, we'll teach you IAM, but an IAM architect is an expert on just IAM. And yes, there are jobs there, but keep that in the back of your mind.
From Don again, would it or does it matter if I'm obese with my weight? I really want to be an IAM architect and maybe start off as an IAM admin for the roadmap to become an IAM architect.
Don, if you become an IAM admin, it will teach you nothing about IAM architectures. There's a difference between learning how to configure and learning how to design. Let me give you a difference. You could sit there and go to Microsoft Active Directory all day long and add a user, Alonzo Coleman, and add a password and give them permissions. That's what an IAM admin does. Now, by comparison, here's what an IAM architect does. They go to Goldman Sachs Bank, for example, and they help them create a strategy to allow remote access users to log in, to create a zero trust environment where one piece of network hardware doesn't trust, and it's design. So admin will teach you nothing about there. So I'd rather you train to be an IAM architect and get an IAM architect job as your first job in the first place. Because I want you to think about it this way. Don, if I taught you how to fix airplane engines, do you think you would be an airplane pilot? No. You're learning the how to do versus the why. How do the systems work and what we need to do? So let's split away admin from architect, because any of those things that are out there, Don, I spend more time retraining admins and engineers to be architects than I do when I get a teacher or a school teacher, for example. So let's get rid of that, because that's not the path. Let's talk about the weight thing. Does it matter? Honestly, yes. And not the way you think it does. You will still get hired regardless of your weight. You will. But sadly, and this is some of the saddest thing in the world, tall people tend to earn more money than short people, and thinner people tend to earn more money than less thin people. It makes me sick. I don't agree with it, but statistically, that is the truth. So what could you do? Well, watch. Do I look taller? If I sit up straight? So be taller. I've gotten people with great architect jobs that are morbidly obese. Not just obese, morbidly obese. And they do great. I know lots of people in tech that are of all shapes and sizes, and your answer is that, and you will do wonderfully. But sadly, you'll probably have a higher earnings at the top end if you get put on a good strength and conditioning program and a good diet program. Again, not me. I don't believe this. I don't believe in it at all, but it's just something for you to think about. But you'll get hired either way. But don't think that an admin role will prepare you for an architect role. If you want an architect role, you're going to have to train for architect skills. You want an admin role, train for admin. I know lots of IAM people and security people that would have no idea how to set up any of this. And I know lots of people that know how to set things up that would have no idea how to design it. Train for the job you want. I mean, nurses don't automatically become doctors because they've got 20 years experience as nurses. It just doesn't work that way. So keep that in the back of your mind. But yes, go do it. Follow your dreams, follow your passion. I would consider security if you're interested in IAM, but if you're really interested in who is the person and what they're allowed to do and logging it, go do it. There is a need, and a big need. And as we approach zero trust architectures, which would be another thing I would say focus on instead, but as we approach zero trust architectures, they're predominantly IAM based. So I think it would be a fantastic role if it interests you.
From Mohammed, to present solution to customers, which is the best way to represent as a team or an individual?
Do you understand what the question is, Alonso?
I think he's saying, what is the best way to present a solution to the customer as a team or as an individual?
Okay, so engineers talk about the problem and then they get to the solution. Business executives and architects talk about the solution and the substantiating evidence as to why. What's the best way to give a presentation? Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then summarize what you're going to tell them. So the key is to do that. Now, there's a lot more that goes into that, but that's the best way to do it. Here is the solution. And I've taken a lot of great engineers, and here's what they do. They tell the hiring manager or the CEO or the executive, they spend 30 minutes telling the executive about the executive's problems. And the executive's they're already out the room. They've already called security. They already know what their problems are. They don't need to be told their problems. They don't need to set the stage. An executive has 2 minutes. You're dealing, we design and present and sell these things, we're dealing to executives that every hour, to be honest, that they're doing something probably costs them $25,000 to $30,000 an hour or more of lost opportunities. So you got to get in, you got to get out, and you got to make your point and make your point fast. So get to the point and you'll be good. Mohammed, I know you're actually there. If I remember correctly, you're the country with the beaches that Somalia, that I always want to go to. I want to see those beaches in Somalia. Mohammed, thanks for joining us from Somalia. We're thrilled to have you. Please ask more questions.
From Sarah, what skills differentiate you from being a good enterprise architect from a good cloud architect?
Sarah, They're the same skills. You know, last week, if you heard David Lithicum and I speak, and we said, hey, architect, we should get rid of the name and just call it an architect. Network architect, we should just call it an architect. Enterprise architect, we should just call it an architect. Cloud architect, we should just call it a cloud architect. And I'm there. So what are the characteristics of a great architect? Strong levels of business acumen, strong levels of leadership skills, strong levels of executive presence, strong levels of emotional intelligence, incredibly deep sales skills, the ability to exercise influence, the ability to understand business processes and help improve business processes, the ability to design and lead a technology solution to improve business performance. That's all architects do that. I did it as a network architect. When I do security architecture work, it's all related to that in some way. Now, I will tell you, a cloud architect can get away with being 50% tech, 50% business at a $180,000 job. A cloud architect with a $500,000 job, like a principal architect job, and I can show you some, better be 80% business and 20% technology. By comparison, an enterprise architect is 80% business and 20% technology. So that's the difference. A cloud architect can get away with being a little more of a techie. But if they are, they're not going to get the better paying jobs. But look, all the better paying jobs are business jobs. Here's one for a senior director at Palo Alto. Look, it's every job we're talking about pays well. It's because it's business. About $500,000, a little more than $500,000 there. A principal architect at Microsoft. This is straight from Glassdoor, about $379 on average. But you're looking at the range of $300 to $495, and that's the key. More business equals higher salary, more sales. We're looking at a role at Accenture, $384 typically for a management consultant, which is similar. Principal architect at AWS, $372. Director level person at IBM, $400. Senior director at Cisco, we're dealing with $527. Principal architect, which means business acumen, everybody, is at Google is $508. So all these better paying jobs all have high levels of business acumen, the ability to sell, the ability to exercise influence, the ability to lead. And that's what makes a great architect. And you can't get away as an enterprise architect without all those skills. Some people can get a cloud architect job with a little less business and a little less smoothness. But they're both great jobs, and they're very, very similar.
From Test, does a master's in cybersecurity degrees help me with the cloud security architect? I have around 10 plus years of experience in software development.
Honestly, TestSoc, no. If you went and got an MBA, that would help you with an architect position. So the key is when you get a degree in cybersecurity, you're not going to be taught by anybody that knows security. It's pretty sad. We retrain people with master's degrees in cloud computing every day. We retrain people with PhDs in cybersecurity. We retrain people with master's degrees in electrical engineering. We retrain people with master's degrees in software and computer engineering. The problem is that's engineering. And learning engineering TestSoc doesn't make you an architect. Now, if you went and got an MBA, that would give you the business acumen. You'd learn some of the leadership skills. You'd learn some project management skills. You'd learn some stakeholder management skills. You'd learn some negotiation skills. And the MBA would honestly cover 50% of those skills you need to be an architect. You can get much more security knowledge by calling Palo Alto and Fortinet and Checkpoint and learning how their systems actually work and be right there and understand it. You can read good security journals and learn more about security. You can work with security architects and ask real world things. But no, I don't ever recommend master's degrees in technology ever. I recommend MBAs. And I wish it wasn't the case, but it's what we're seeing.
From Adewale, is a TOGAF certification absolutely important to become a cloud architect?
Adewale, I'm going to say this. I know I say it a lot. Nobody cares about your certifications. Nobody. Other than you and the people that are selling certifications. So if you guys have questions, ask them now because we really want to help you. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about what is the point of a certification. I've got students like Delroy Batt who got a cloud security architect job with no tech experience and 0 certifications. I've got someone like Bob Welch, really great guy. He had an AWS cloud practitioner and he got a cloud security architect job. I've got lots of people that get jobs without certification. So here's what I want you to understand, Adwali. You can get any job you want if you've got the right skills. You can have every certification in the world, and if you don't have the right skills, nobody cares. So the certification should be the last thing that you do. So if a certification won't get you hired, why do them? Well, the certification can help improve your brand. Now, it's not going to improve your brand as much as creating really great content and having the world see it, but a certification can improve your brand. And because a certification can improve your brand, it can help you get an interview. I want you to understand this. A certification can help you get an interview, and that is very powerful. But understand, what they teach you in the certification will never get you hired. In fact, it has nothing to do with the actual job. So certification, interview, knowledge and skills, hired. But getting that interview is a big help, right? So the key at Wally is to get 2 or 3 certifications that get you the interview and not waste any more time on your certifications and then focus on being great at your job. I typically like 1 cloud certification, just 1. And all they really are is the name of a service and how to configure that. So they're all completely irrelevant for the architect's job. But I pick one of these 2, the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional or the Azure Solutions Architect Expert. Either one, not both. I generally recommend a data center or a networking certification. I'm particularly fond of the Cisco Certified Network Professional. Why? Because it's about 20 times harder than the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional, and you might actually learn something about networking along the way. And what is a cloud? It's somebody else's network in a data center. And I like the TOGAF because it's an architect certification. It's the only architect certification of the bunch. But TOGAF won't teach you architecture either. What? An architecture certification that won't teach architecture. So Wally, let me tell you what TOGAF actually is. And I love TOGAF. I love it. And I use it with our students, and we teach it to our students. And I want you to understand why. If you already have the architect skills, TOGAF will make you better. And you might ask why. So I want you to consider this. I used to practice internal medicine in my youth. That was my first job. My wife also practices internal medicine. My wife's focus is on diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular things. My focus is on people that have injuries. Back pain, knee pain, hip pain. Kind of keep that in the back of your life. That's what I treat. What she treats is traditional diabetes, high blood pressure. My wife starts from the head. She goes from the head, she looks at the eyes, she looks at the nose, she looks at the throat, she looks at the neck, she goes to the lungs, she goes to the heart, she goes to the belly, etc. I start at the big toe because a lot of people's back pain starts at the big toe. Then I examine the foot, then I examine the ankle, then the knees, then the hip. As you can see, my wife and I don't follow a consistent process. Now, when you don't follow a consistent process, errors occur. So TOGAF is a framework for people who already know how to be an architect and have the architect skills. And it's a framework to do things in a very repeatable manner. And Adewale, I love the TOGAF framework. I think you should be familiar with it, and everybody uses it. What is the framework? Well, the framework is basically this. Start by asking the clients the vision for their business. Now, just that, if I get people to follow this framework, they're not going to go start thinking about, ooh, microservices sound exciting. It's new. They're going to think about, what does the company want to do? Next, in TOGAF, they say, learn the business architecture. How does the business work now? And they want you to create a new strategy for how do you want the business in the future. Then you examine the data architecture, okay? Then how do you want the data to work in the future? You examine the technology architecture. How do you want? Now it's about building an implementation plan. Now it's about selling the implementation plan to the team. And now it's about creating governance. So what TOGAF is a very beautiful structured process to get you from point A to point B. And by doing so, you'll be great. You'll be great. With or without TOGAF. But I do recommend TOGAF, and I like it. And we provide TOGAF training to everybody. as part of our Cloud Architect program, our Elite Cloud Architect program, and everyone, because we love that framework. It's the only that framework. There's the Zachman framework, but they're all about how do we drive transformation as opposed to the engineering things that are out there, which is how do we just use tech. So I love the framework and I use it, and it helps me and it helps my students dramatically understand that architecture is not engineering, and it helps them think about architecture in a very structured methodology. But we teach architecture, so we add this to it, and it's a beautiful mix.
Sarah, what projects can I actively do to showcase my architecture competency and just learn to design in general?
So you're going to have to do real architectures. So with our students, for example, we might present a banking scenario and ask our students to design a banking architecture. We might present a healthcare challenge and ask them to design an architecture for that challenge. We might say design a new social media organization one day. We might say a company is running into a staffing challenge and they need to improve their efficiency, and we may be generating an AI architecture. But what you really have to do is design systems to solve actual real problems. We don't use fake architecture with our clients, Sarah. I've been an architect for 25 years. I know pretty much every problem that you could possibly ever run into, because I either ran into it or my friends ran into it, and we all discussed cases, because architecture is a team sport. And in 25 years of them, you get to a lot. But, you know, I don't know why. I've been seeing a bunch of resumes. People are coming in for jobs and they've got a cloud project section. And I hate to say it, but I throw every one of those resumes away. I don't want someone that thinks they can build a project on their own and they're going to impress me. If I was looking for an artist, I would like a portfolio. But I'm looking for a professional. Imagine a doctor comes in and they say, here's a list. I took care of sore throats, headaches, and stomach pains. I'd say, yeah, well, everybody does. So that doesn't interest me. Now, by comparison, Sarah, let's talk about what you could do that actually matters. If you went out there and you looked at a solution, and you talked about how that solution would solve some customers' problems, the world's going to see that and like it. For example, I wrote a paper on IP multicast 20 years ago at Riverstone Networks. Cisco Systems TAC is using it to diagnose multicast problems more than 20 years later. From a document I wrote. People know me all over the world from this document I wrote before I even learned how to write well. From a document. And that matters more, 10,000 times more than if I was able to say, look, in my home lab, I did this. So go and show that you know. Remember, an architect doesn't build. They don't code. They don't configure. They design solutions. They document solutions. They write thought leadership documents, often known as white papers. We present at conferences. We educate our clients, whether they be executives or we're building training or for people on the solution. That's our job. So go out there and do it. Go out there and give a presentation at a conference and put that on your resume. Go out there and write a book and put that on your resume. Go out there and write a white paper and share that with the world for the world to see. And not like this, hey, here's how you set up an Apache web server on an EC2 instance. That's not our job. And honestly, you can go to the AWS documentation and click it. Or heck, you can do sudo apt install Apache in one line and put it there. So don't talk about that kind of stuff. What I want you to do is go talk, show. So if interest rates are rising, what's that impact on business and how can cloud architecture assist that? That's an architecture thing. All of a sudden, employers need to do some layoffs because they've got a lot of staff and the staff isn't as productive as they need, and they've got a revenue shortage. What kind of technologies can you do to increase that organization's revenues or increase the output of those people? That's architecture. So that's how you message being an architect. We actually have a really great branding program if you're interested in that. Alonzo and me and Chris, we really put it together. It's pretty impressive. And while I've worked in marketing, I don't have Alonzo's 30 years of marketing experience. I wish I did. But he's an expert at building people's brands. He's a brand architect. So that's his world. But But that's what you do. Show you and make yourself seen as a leader. Now you're going to do great.
From Don, thank you, Mike, for that response. So as of now, I'm no longer interested in becoming an IAM architect. Now, as you stated, it's better to become a security architect.
Yeah, Don, you got to do what you love, but you'll have far more career opportunities as a security architect. I've got security architects getting hired everywhere, all over the world. I try to focus on things where I see a big pipeline, a big future, and a huge need. Why do I focus on huge needs and shortage? I showed you guys my supply and demand curves, and I'd rather learn the thing that 10 people in the entire world know that everybody needs than learn the thing that everybody knows. And a lot of people think about IAM, but security is out there, and it is a huge problem. You've got the US government getting hacked constantly. You've got companies like Microsoft getting hacked. You've got other companies that have outages and they won't tell you why they have an outage. They tell you have a power failure. Who knows? Maybe they were hacked too. But you start seeing these kind of things, and the more stuff that goes on the systems, the more stuff that goes on the cloud, the more stuff that becomes digitized, the greater the demand for security professionals. Don, I think you'll have an incredible career. If you'd like, we'd love to train you. If not, go out there. But remember, as an architect, business, 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 and build an elite career.
If you have any last minute questions, normally we stop at, I believe, 3:40, actually at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, so I can do one or two more.
Okay, great.
If there is one or two more. And if not, my publicist is trying to get me to talk to a company in the UK for a magazine on tech jobs. But I can always...
Let's maximize the time we have left, and please ask your questions. We're here for you.
We're here for you. So we'll stick around, give you another 60 seconds to ask questions. If not, my team's got a lot of work to do. We've got some exciting new things we're working on. And in the meantime, while we wait for your questions, tomorrow we have the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. Please join. This is going to be on Zoom, which means we can have a face-to-face conversation. I can ask you questions. We can assess where you're at versus where you need to be. And it's all kinds of fun. So please do that. Please join us. While we're at it, we've got a document on how to get your first cloud architect job. It's free. I would download it. Team put a lot of effort into that to really maximize your career. And in 2 weeks, we're going to do an AWS Solutions Architect Bootcamp. We'll cover the Solutions Architect Associate and 80% of the Solutions Architect Professional while we're at it in the same course. We'll explain to you how the technology works, not just how to configure it. And because all these DevOps engineers and cloud engineers and software engineers reached out to us and they said, Mike, I love your content. It's the only thing I've ever watched and understood so far, but I want hands-on. We're not architects, we're engineers. We're going to have a tremendous number of labs for the engineers that are interested too. So it's going to be a good experience. It's completely free. Start signing up. Well, that looks like a good question.
From Douglas. How you doing, Douglas? What are the particular capabilities needed when engaging with executives and high-level stakeholders one-on-one versus presenting to a group of executives and stakeholders?
Great question. So present to one versus present to a group. The ability to build rapport and quickly is really important. And here's why. Most tech executives have less than a 1-second attention span. That's right, you heard me, a 1-second attention span. And when I was younger, I promised that when I became an executive, I wouldn't have a 1-second attention span. I told my wife it was never going to happen to me. And now somebody's got to get my attention within the first second or I'm automatically tuned out now that I get 5,000, 10,000 messages a day. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So the ability to create rapport, the ability to grab and capture attention, the ability to be relevant to their needs. So for example, I love martial arts, specifically Filipino martial arts. It's one of the things I've trained a lot in. My wife is not a Filipino martial artist. So if I talked all day about how to slice and dice in Filipino martial arts with knives and sticks, she'd be leaving the house and she'd be on the way to go buy handbags. and kind of keep that at the back of your mind. So the point is, you got to be relevant to the person. Now you have to have presence, because if you talk to someone, hi, it's good to talk to you today, they're not going to take you seriously. So the executive presence, and they have to trust you. Now, believe me, you meet with the CEO, they've already asked around about you. They've already checked you out. They want to see if you're credible, because no executive wants to listen to somebody that's not credible. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So that's where I would strongly, strongly suggest you kind of keep that. So these are the things that are really one-on-one. And here's the other side, Douglas. And, at the next conference, I may teach this if there's a really good hotel bar. When it comes to one-on-one, you got to be pretty good at food and wine selection. Now, Douglas, when I reached a certain level in my architecture career, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but it was suggested to me. First thing I did was I took golf lessons. The next thing that I did is I actually took a course on how to select the right wine and scotch to go with meals, like a sommelier kind of thing. And I learned about scotch, I learned about wine, and I learned how to entertain clients and what would offend people and what would not. So that are kind of really important things to learn too with the executive group, especially when it's one-to-one.
From Sarah, it's so funny because I spoke with an enterprise today and I said that I wanted to do an MBA, and she couldn't understand why I would choose this over a master's in science and AI.
I can tell you why I want to do this, Sarah. You're going to get a master's in science and AI, and you're going to know absolutely nothing that matters. Nothing. Because the people that are teaching it have no real experience whatsoever. They've got academic degrees. And in the end, you'll know nothing. And what are you going to do then? You're going to take a course and you're going to learn artificial intelligence. And sadly, you won't get the business acumen that you actually need. That's why I no longer recommend degrees or master's degrees in computers, because I've been trying to hire people now for 25 years. And I want them to have the skills that I need. So that's why they're there. That's why I don't recommend any degrees in science for tech. Now, degrees in other things, yeah, I love it. My degrees are, I've got other degrees. I did 2 MBAs and I've got a master's degree as a nurse practitioner for internal medicine. And I got to tell you, you know what degree helped me best? My nurse practitioner degree. And here's the reason. What's a doctor do? Or a nurse practitioner, or a physician assistant? Somebody like Douglas comes in and he says, my head hurts. And I'm like, okay, Douglas, what makes your head better? And he's like, Mike, when I yell at you, or when you ask me 8,000 questions about audio technologies. I'm like, all right, Douglas, I'll stop asking you questions. And then I do an exam on him, then I make a diagnosis and I give him a treatment. Okay? What's an architect do? Client, tell me about your business. I ask a whole bunch of questions. I bring in some engineers to baseline the organization systems, like me doing a physical exam on a patient. I make a diagnosis and I make a treatment plan called an architecture. So, if I could recommend a medical degree for you to learn architecture, I actually would, because it's the best architecture training. And it includes a lot of communication skills training and emotional intelligence training. But in all seriousness, I recommend an MBA.
Yeah, definitely, because there's two sides to become to a cloud architect. Is the technology and the business acumen needed to sell said business solutions, that's business transformative for organizations. So if you're talking tech to leadership that could care anything, that could care less about the tech, they want to use that tech as a means to an end. So if that's all you know how to solution and communicate, whereas they need increased market share, increased efficiency, the ability to command the industry, to be one step ahead from their competitors, to understand how FinOps and other things are business transformative and help to increase their margins and reduce their costs. Understand what the difference between OpEx and CapEx is. What does that mean for their organization? You're not going to learn that from a tech perspective all the time. They need to use that to strategize how they're going to move in their industry, how they're going to be one step ahead of their competitors, as I mentioned before. So what does that look like? It's not going to be tech. It's going to be that business transformative strategies needed to solution for their businesses.
It is. And the other thing that you find is there's a perspective of the $180,000 architect, and then there's the perspective of the $500,000 to $1 million a year architect. They're completely different. The lower architect jobs by pay are really the people that are still thinking about the tech and they're not really getting to the business. Once they get to the real roles, they're like, wait, business, and they're there. So you are going to get a different perspective. Once you start speaking to distinguished architects, you'll get a different perspective, or principal architects. And I was a principal architect in 2 years. And the only reason was this. All those people trying to get me down this techie stuff. And every VP of architecture I spoke to, or CIO said, I need business. And I'm like, why are all these people telling me to do something different? So Sarah, it's a lesson I learned a really long time ago. I tried to do 2 things. My grandmother, God bless her soul, she just died. She was amazing. When I was 6 years old, she had a sad day, so I tried to buy her a sandbox. I opened up my piggy bank. We went to the store called Kitty City where they sold toys. And I told her that I wanted to go to the toy store. And when I got there, and she said, but you have a sandbox. And I said, but it's for you, Grandma. I want you to have a sandbox. You're having a sad day. She told me this every year for the rest of her life because she loved that I wanted to do this. And also, well, when I first met my wife, oh my God, it's a really, really long time ago. I was working as a firefighter paramedic. And, you know, I bought her the coolest Swiss Army knife because, you know, it had a cutting tool, it had a screwdriver, which I don't know how to use. It had a bottle opener in case we went on a date, we're going to drink a glass of wine. It had a knife in case she had to cut herself out of something. And she looked at me and she says, dear, like, what is this? Like, look how cool it is. And she says, dear, from now on, I don't want you to ever buy anything without asking me first. So, Sarah, it's going to depend on who you ask. Are you asking the people that are principal or distinguished architects or VPs of architecture like me? You're going to get one thing. If you ask people that are new to architecture or haven't made those levels, you might get something different. But it's okay. You got to figure out, where do you want to be? Do you want to be migrating to these high positions, or you really love and married to the tech? It's okay. You got to do what makes you happy.
And I believe, let's see, it's test side. We have security architects position in our organization, but not a cloud security architect, but our applications are deployed on AWS. Do you think security architects are similar to cloud security architect?
It's the same job, Tessa. There's no difference. That's why, like, there's a really good security certification that I like called the CISSP. Those same people make a CCSP, which is a cloud version of it. Guess what? I tell nobody to do the cloud version, and here's why. Some companies have data centers, some have private cloud, some have public cloud, some have hybrid cloud, some have hybrid multi-cloud, some are multi-clouds. I need an architect for that knows security. I wouldn't call him a cloud security architect. I'd call him a security architect. So it goes back to what David Lithicum and I said. The names that people come for these architect roles are ridiculous. They're really just an architect. If you're really an architect, you're asking about their business and you're designing a solution to their business. Network architect, focus on the network. Security architect, focus on the security. Does it matter if I have 2 next generation Palo Alto firewalls hidden behind a network load balancer in my data center and it's a physical device, or a virtual device in AWS, Azure, or Google? It's the same thing. So security architect, cloud security architect, it's the same job. Nothing changes. It's sort of like if this shirt is basically white, right? It's white. Some people may call it blanco, which is also white. It's the same thing, it's just in a different word. So same job, great job. You'll love it, can highly recommend it. We train a lot of people. So I hope we answered all your questions to help you build a better career, whether it's a cloud architect, a security architect, an enterprise architect, or any career you want. That's why we're here. So if you're interested in training with us to be an architect, we've got a program for you, and we get people hired every single day of the week, and we'll get you hired too. No problem. We're experts at it as long as you do the work. I want you to join us tomorrow. It's free. Join us on Zoom for our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. We'll go through the list of every skill that you need. You wanted a list of skills? We'll give it to you. You don't want to wait for the list of skills? Download the completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job Guide. It's an ebook we wrote for you. Again, completely free. Go get it. And while we're at it, sign up for the completely free AWS Solutions Architect Bootcamp. It's in approximately 2 weeks. We're going to have all kinds of fun, and it's free, so we can help you in your career. Thank you so much for coming. Alonzo, thanks for being here with me today.
Pleasure, Mike.
And look forward to seeing you all very soon. Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.